So, dear friends, today's gospel is a very odd gospel. We've had a couple of these over the last few weeks, where Jesus tells a parable and he compares himself, or God the Father, to a king, an exacting king, as the gospel tells us, who picks up what he hasn't put down and reaps where he has not sown. That makes him look unjust, right? So we have to be careful here what the Lord is saying and what the Lord is not saying. What the Lord is saying through this parable is that we have been entrusted with a certain amount of treasure. So certain people have an awful lot of talent. Some people are just good at everything. I think we've all met those really wonderful people who are just good at everything. They're good at languages, and they're good at music, and they're good at athletics, and they're everything you do they can do just a little better. They're just really good. It's wonderful to live with people like that. It's great. Aren't you fantastic? And they're very, very talented. So a lot has been given to them. But the flip side of that is that a lot is expected of them. If God has given them a lot, he now expects a lot from them. There are others who maybe struggle with academics, and you think of the Curie of Ars, who struggled with Latin and found those kind of things, any kind of study difficult. Or those who aren't very athletic or a bit sickly in nature. Padre Pio was a bit kind of sickly in his constitution, just tended to always get sick. So not particularly smart in the ways of the world, and physically a bit weak as well. So in a way, there's less expected, but the Lord expects us. He does expect something from us all, even to the man who's only given £1. So he's given in this particular gospel, they're all actually given the same. They're given £1 each, and then some manage to make that £1 make 10. Another manages to make that £1 make 5, and the other does nothing with it, buries it and gives it back to the landowner when he comes back. So the point is, all of us are expected to do something. Even keep in mind that the last person who was given £1, he gives that £1 back. So he doesn't steal it, he doesn't waste it, he doesn't do a prodigal son on it and go blow it on a life of luxury and pleasure. He just simply gives it back. So he does nothing with it, but doesn't do anything bad with it either. He just gives it back. And the Lord's reaction, or in this case the noble man, his reaction is, "You wicked servant." What do you mean, you wicked servant? Why are you calling me wicked? I didn't waste it. I just gave it back to you as it was. Do you know what I mean? You gave it to me. I gave it back to you. What is the problem? So why is there such a reaction, and a negative reaction? "You wicked servant, out of your own mouth I condemn you." So just to apply this very quickly to our spiritual lives, there is a huge danger, and I would argue that it's a very, very common situation where in our faith journey we reach a certain level, a certain plateau, and we're happy there. It's good. Like you see in the world, very often people are applauded simply for believing in God. Someone gets an award and they say, so I want to thank my manager, I want to thank my coach, and I want to thank God. And everyone goes, "Oh my goodness, he believes in God." He believes in God. And it's a good start, obviously, believing in God. That's nice. There's way more to it than that, though. Because not only do you have to believe in him, you have to actually do what he says. Okay, so then for us Catholics, we believe in God, hopefully, and we go to Mass on Sundays. Fantastic, okay. And for a lot of people, once you do that, I believe in God and I go to Mass on Sunday, job done. Spiritual progress over. I go to Mass on Sundays. What more do you want? Then you've got some radical people who not only believe in God and go to Mass on Sundays, but actually pray during the week as well, when you don't actually have to. Right? And you think, is that really necessary? Is that necessary? So, very, very briefly, I just want to look at St. Teresa of Avila's interior castle, because it is beautiful and somewhat intimidating to see where the spiritual journey can actually go. Because if we don't know what the goal is, or we don't know what could be ahead of us if we were open to it, then I think a lot of us are happy enough to stay where we are because at least it's better than most people. But that's a real danger in the spiritual life, to say, my spiritual life is better than most people, so I'll stop here. Because any more might be uncomfortable. So I'll stay where it's comfortable. I mean, I'm better than most people. I'm doing more or less what God is asking me to do. So why do any more? Why not just stop here? So St. Teresa of Avila, her spiritual writing is profound. And as I say, a little intimidating, because when you read it, hopefully, and this is kind of the goal of this homily, that you maybe try and find out where you are in this spiritual journey. Because if you know where you are, then this hopefully will help you identify what the next step is. Because if we don't know if there are further steps, then we might just stay where we are. As I say, we believe in God, we go to Mass, job done, right? Not really, no. No, there's an awful lot more. We can go an awful lot deeper. So, St. Teresa of Avila, she talks about this interior castle. And she says, imagine a castle, big walls and a drawbridge and a moat around it. And that moat is full of water. And in that moat are all sorts of ugly creatures, crocodiles and snakes and these kind of things. And so in order to enter into the castle, you must pass over the moat and leave these creatures and dangers behind you. This is mortal sin. So if we're still engaging, if we still have kind of a little bit of mortal sin in our lives, or if we're allowing it in our lives, if we haven't tried to turn our backs on it, if we're not fighting valiantly against mortal sin, then our spiritual journey hasn't even begun, she says. Okay? So that's step one. And that's not even the first room in this interior castle. There are 7 rooms in the interior castle. Leaving mortal sin behind you isn't even room number 1. Okay? That's basic. So we have to leave mortal sin behind us. Okay. We enter the castle. Room number 1 is vocal prayer. Okay? So this is Liturgy of the Hours, Rosary, Divine Mercy Chaplet, prayers that we say with our mouths. So they're prayers that we say out loud. Okay? And this, keep in mind, this is room 1 of 7. Because many of us would say, once I believe in God and I go to Mass and I pray the Rosary, that's kind of it, really. I'm good then, aren't I? I'm done. No, 1 of 7. So still much, much further to go. So now, by no means is she saying that vocal prayer isn't important, but it's not the end goal. It's necessary, and the vast majority of holy hours will have some sort of vocal prayer, in them, where we pray a Rosary, Divine Mercy Chaplet, or the Breviary, whatever it might be. She's not saying that this is wrong, but as regards depth of love for God, vocal prayer on its own, while it's a good start, it's not the goal. One can go deeper. Okay, so after room 1 is room 2, and that's meditation. Okay, so not only now are we saying the words of the Our Father or reading the Psalms in the Breviary, but I'm starting to meditate them. They go into me. It's like what we try to do here at Daily Mass when we reflect on the readings of the Gospel. This should be, hopefully, meditation. We're trying to let the Word of God sink into our hearts and change the way we see the world, the way we see ourselves, the way we see Him. So we want to come to know God more deeply through meditation. So it's not just saying the words, but allowing the words to enter our hearts. Okay? So that's meditation. Fantastic. That's still only step 2 of 7. Right? So you think, Jenny, once I'm meditating, I'm doing pretty well, aren't I? It's a good start. Yes. But there is more. There's more. Okay. Room number 3. This is what she would call affective prayer. Not effective. Effective, it means it has an effect. Affective prayer means it has to do with affection. So this is the type of relationship that you might see between 2 people who are helplessly in love and don't talk but just stare into each other's eyes while holding hands, sighing every now and again as they look at each other. Isn't that just beautiful, It's that kind of thing, without being quite so soppy. But that's so, or like, you know, older couples who do actually love each other. It's not that they've learned to tolerate each other, but older couples who love each other might not actually say very much. I mean, they might just be sitting together, playing with their false teeth, you know, moving their teeth around in their mouth or whatever it is, and they're just in each other's company, and they're not talking all the time, but they do love each other, absolutely. They actually love each other very deeply, and have seen the absolute worst of each other, and have come through it, and are very happy in each other's loving company, without necessarily saying anything. So this is affective prayer. So, I mean, ask yourself, have you ever done this? Where you come into the chapel, and not just start reading the Bible, or not just start praying the rosary. Both these things are good, obviously, absolutely. We're not disregarding them at all. But have you ever sat in the chapel just with the Lord and just be filled with love for him and receive his love for you? You see how this goes way beyond just saying prayers, important as prayers are, but to allow the love of God to enter your heart, and then for you to love him in return. For you to just simply sit in the Lord's presence and love him. Nothing going on. No music, no text, no formal prayer, just love. Okay? See how beautiful that is, or that would be. Hopefully you've had this experience, you know, of just being in the Lord's presence, loving him. Okay? But even there, that's step or room 3 of 7. And you'd say, bless, if I sat in a room just, you know, or in a chapel, just loving God, I mean, surely that's it. That's as good as the saints were. Not yet. And that's why I find this really, really helpful. So like not only can I go further, I should go further. I'm called further. Okay. So after these first 3 steps, which more or less are my effort collaborating with God, but it's my effort collaborating with God. St. Teresa of Avila, especially St. John of the Cross, would speak about the dark night of the senses. The dark night of the senses. This would be a whole other homily or a whole talk, but just very, very briefly. So after these affective prayer experiences of being in the Lord and just loving him and receiving the Lord's love, there is a danger that I can become a little spiritually proud. Do you know what I mean? Because I look at everyone else and how they pray or how they don't pray, and we're just a little better, really, aren't we? We're just a little better. You know, our community or our community here in Holy Family or in my own spiritual life, I'm just really a little better than most of the pagans out there, you know? And when I was praying with you, I had a word of knowledge, and when I was praying for this person, I just felt inspired to say, and there's all these kind of wonderful things, okay? But there's a danger, you see, that I can become quite content in my spiritual awesomeness. And so what will the Lord do? In order that these gifts, in order that these experiences don't become an obstacle to loving God for himself, those consolations can be removed. And so now when you pray, praying is hard. Prayer might feel very dry, just kind of emotionless, just bland. There isn't a rejection of prayer. You actually still like it. You still like being in the chapel. You still want to go. But when you sit there, it's like, where are you, Lord? I mean, I used to experience all sorts of stuff in the chapel. And this is what the spiritual masters of the church would call the opportunity for the second conversion. Second conversion. So keep in mind, you've already gone pretty far. You know what I mean? You've mastered vocal prayer, meditation, and affective prayer. And now, after that, is the time for the second conversion. Why? Because the Lord doesn't want his consolations to become an obstacle. What does that mean? The Lord wants us to love him for him, not to love him for what he gives us. So, Lord, I love you even though I don't receive your consolation. I love you even though I don't receive inspirations or words of knowledge. I love you anyway. I love you for you. So this dark night of the senses is very, very important. One other little note. I listened to a conference given by an American priest on this, and he said something very, very interesting, which I'd never heard before. He said, during the dark night of the senses, there are three things to keep in mind. Number one, prayer can be very arid or dry. Number two, you have no desire for worldly things. So if prayer is arid or dry, and to be honest, I just really want to go back to the life that I knew. I want to go back to, I don't know, maybe I should watch more movies, maybe I should do more fun things, maybe I should, maybe that girl who I used to like, maybe I can just give her a call, see how things are, whatever it might be. So if I want to go back to my old life, that's not the dark night of the senses, that's you being lukewarm. So it's very different. Dark night of the senses is prayer is hard, but I don't want to go back to my previous life. I still want to pray. Those three things. So it's arid. It may be challenging and difficult, but I don't want to go back to my old way of life, and I still want to pray. So that's the dark night of the senses. If prayer is arid and I want to go back to the world, that's spiritual lukewarmness, not the dark night of the senses. Okay, so after that then, we enter into what the spiritual greats would call the illuminative way, the illuminative path. There are 3 steps here, and these are gifts from God. So not something that we produce. So you've gone through the dark night of the senses, and then the spiritual greats, so St. Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, speak about this prayer in silence. So silent prayer. So in affective prayer, there's great expressions of love and great reception of love. In the 4th room, in the interior castle, it's silent prayer. We're just simply being with the Lord, just in his presence. Emotions aside, it's just, I love being with the Lord. Can you see how all of these are preparations for heaven? Where we just love being with him who loves us. Just being with him. Prayer of silence, prayer in the quiet. Okay. Very quickly then, the 5th room of the interior castle is full union. Full union with God. So it's similar to the prayer of quiet, but it's like it's turned up. It's like it's a complete full immersion in God. So there's this full union. And St. Teresa of Avila speaks about the 3 faculties of the soul: intellect, the will, and the memory. Intellect, the will, and the memory. So intellect, what I know; will, what I choose; memory, my experiences. And that all of these become united with God on a profound level. My intellect, that I may know worldly things, but I just don't care about worldly things anymore. I want to know more about God. My will, I want to choose things that glorify God. And my memory, I look back on my life and I'm so grateful for all that God has done. Okay, so this is full union, room 5. Very briefly, room 6. This is ecstasy, right? Where we're completely united with God. We're still here on earth, but there's something kind of otherworldly about a person who has experienced ecstasy in God. They're here, but like their hearts live for God. They're so focused on him. After that is what's called then the dark night of the soul. So there are those three steps at the beginning. They're the purgative way. That's the vocal prayer, meditative prayer, and affective prayer. They're for beginners. That's the beginner level. Then you've got the illuminative way. These are all gifts from God. The prayer of quiet, full union, and ecstasy. After which is the dark night of the soul. That's when the Lord's consolations are taken away from us, but in a much deeper way than the dark night of the senses. So it's like St. Teresa of Lisieux at the end of her life, while she was dying, she says, I don't know if I believe. I mean, I think I believe. I want to believe. I just don't know if I don't know if I do. It's, the Lord on the cross, Father, when he feels God's absence. My God, why have you forsaken me? Did Jesus doubt God's goodness or God's existence? No, but he just couldn't feel his presence. It's this plunging into the dark night of the soul. Okay? After which then is what's called the unitive way, the transforming union. Complete unity with God. Then you're ready for heaven. That's the spiritual journey summarized. And I think it's helpful to know so that we don't spiritually plateau and don't just get to a certain level. See now that we've gotten to the transformative union, see how far we are from just going to Mass on Sundays. You see how far we've gone. And see how important it is to know what those steps are, so I know where I am, so I know, Lord, I've never just sat in your presence, loving you and allowing you to love me. And again, that's only step 3, but I've never actually done that. Well, good. If you know you've never done that, now is your chance. Now is your chance for spiritual growth. Lord, I realize that I don't love you the way I should. I do good things, I do spiritual things, I just don't necessarily love you in them or through them. So Lord, if this is what you're calling me to do, then grant me the grace to do it. I want to love you more. Okay? And then that'll be fine. Then when those consolations are taken away, Lord, I love you. This is the dark night of the senses. Okay? So don't tell everyone, by the way, because if you tell everyone, that's also a form of spiritual pride. Hi, everybody. Having a hard day, you know what I mean? I'm just going through the dark night of the senses, you know. Just after making so much spiritual progress. So the Lord is purifying me now through the dark night of the senses. Someday you may get there too. You know, I hope that you will hold on tight as you grow in the spiritual journey as I go through my dark night of the senses. You know, that's spiritual pride, you know. So this is all about the interior life. So we go through these things, and the part of the difficulty of these things, you have to go through them with a smile. You have to go through them without people knowing. Maybe your spiritual director would know, your confessor. But apart from that, you don't tell people. We go through these things out of love for the Lord as He purifies our souls, as He prunes them back so that they may bear more fruit. But as I say, I think it's a real gift for us to know what the levels are, what the steps might be, so that I can just hold myself accountable. Lord, what? Have I stopped? Have I stopped in my spiritual journey? Have I given up on spiritual progress? Have I just become content with where I am? And so I'm just pulling the handbrake there on my spiritual journey because here is good. Here it's better than most anyway, so we're good. When the Lord is saying there's so much more. Follow me. There is no one who has left house or land, father, mother, brother, sisters, who won't receive 100 times as much. Whatever that we give up for the Lord, whatever we sacrifice for the Lord, He promises we will receive 100-fold. So whatever we give up for His name, for His glory, out of love for Him, we will receive 100 times as much. Some of the spiritual greats as well propose that the reason this is true is whatever we give up, whatever we sacrifice, the Lord puts Himself in that place. And that's why we can say we receive, it's not even 100 times as much, we receive infinitely more. Because whatever we give up for love of God, we receive Him in return. And that's where the blessing is, that's where the peace is, that's where heaven is. So we ask the Lord today, in our own spiritual journeys, to renew our hearts, to guide us forward, that we might not spiritually plateau, but that we might have our sights set on an ever greater love of God until He is our all in all, until it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me.